Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBallBreakdown live post-game show after the Celtics had visited the Spurs. And we also have Coach Dave Dufour with us tonight, again, making our second appearance together with another post-game show. So, Dave, how's it going tonight?
It's pretty good. We actually got to see a good game this week.
You did. Luckily, we had a game that was at least worth watching through the whole fourth quarter. Quick impressions while we're talking?
Spurs look better without Aldridge. I think better ball movement. That feels like a hot take, but I mean, really, he's kind of a ball stopper. So ball movement looked good. Celtics struggled to create shots without Isaiah Thomas. I mean, those are the two big things that stand out to me. What about you?
A couple of things that I noticed. David Lee seems kind of re-energized, and certainly on offense, he did look very good. The question then is I noticed he played some defense too. So that's another argument of if David Lee can play like decent defense like we saw tonight, then is that better defense than LaMarcus Aldridge, or do you think that he's been better overall for the season on defense?
So Aldridge is getting a little bit of a bad rap this year. He's been very active on defense, and that matters, right? Like, your effort does make a difference.
Sure.
David Lee, I don't know. I can't explain the David Lee thing. He's been good this year. His passing has always been good. His defense has been horrific. Like, he's, one of the worst 5 players in the league at defense typically. But this year, at least the eye test, it looks like he is playing better defense than both Powell and Aldridge. So I don't know. I can't explain it.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma that Popovich is going to have because, I released a video today earlier that talked about Kawhi Leonard's issues in the statistics, and it was kind of a fascinating thing to see that their defense when he is on the bench is like 14 points better per 100 possessions. Like, it's huge, and it doesn't almost feel like it's an anomaly. And then we're starting to dive into, what makes that happen and what's the difference here? And so the funny thing is, while we were talking during the game, it felt like I'm trying to figure out how to get Powell marginalized and get him on the bench more. Well, now we're thinking that maybe Aldridge could play a little bit less, which probably isn't going to happen. So what do you think Pop's going to do here to get them to the next level?
It's almost December 15th. And that opens up a lot of possibilities. And there are a lot of contenders that could use a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge.
Oh, geez. Are you serious?
Now, am I saying that he's going to be traded? No, I don't know. Am I saying it's something that maybe the Spurs are considering? Of course. I think that aside from Kawhi Leonard and Manu and probably Tony Parker, I think everybody's on the table.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think the Spurs have made a mid-season trade for a rotation player ever. Maybe like Steven Jackson at some point in the middle of that, but they really don't do that, probably because they don't want to have to teach the guy how to get involved with the whole offense in the middle of the year when there's not much practice time. So I don't know. I'm thinking that I don't know. I just feel like R.C. Buford just hangs up his phone once the season starts.
I mean, that might be the case. I don't know, but I'm just trying to figure out, how do I get Dedmon in the game, and how do I see more of Davis Bertans? I need more of him on the court. His 3-point shooting from the 4 spot and his playmaking ability, as we saw tonight, those two really nice. There was a lot of touch on those lobs to Dedmon. I mean, it helps because Dedmon is 7 feet tall and a human trampoline apparently, but he can go up and grab them. But that was some pretty impressive playmaking by him. And he's a guy that opposing defenses are not going to be able to help off him in the corner. Whereas with Gasol, they still are not respecting him in the corner. Zeller left him wide open. He hit the 3, but Zeller left him wide open because I'm assuming that the scouting report says close, come and help on Kawhi when he's penetrating, and we'll live and die with Gasol shooting jump shots from the corner. Well, Bertans, he's a better shooter, so you can't do that. So I don't know. I just want more of those minutes. Plus, they're fun, and I like fun in my basketball teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the ball, when it moves like that, what was interesting about this game overall was that both these teams run very similar things, and they have a very similar philosophy on offense. So to me, it almost felt like this is what the future of basketball is going to look like. Every team is going to play this way. And we heard Hubie kind of in his "Get Off My Lawn" speech talking about how there really is no post-ups. There's nobody goes down there. They don't throw the ball down there. And that is true for the most part. We didn't see very many post-ups, a little bit. But it almost felt like to me that Hubie would have wanted that to happen every time down, or at the very least have the guy down on the post every time down. But then that's just going to get in the way of any kind of drive you want to make.
Yeah, people have been lamenting they lamented the death of the skilled big man because they only equate the big man to like they're only allowed to have skills in the post. And now that we've got all these skilled bigs, people are complaining because we have too many. And it's like, no, we don't have Patrick Ewing and we don't have Hakeem shooting mid-range. But if they played now, maybe not Ewing, but Hakeem would definitely shoot threes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
David Robinson would definitely shoot threes. All of these guys that were, when I was growing up, every center had a 16-foot jump shot. I mean, Bill Cartwright had a 16-foot jump shot. And so what you would see is that if they were playing now, these guys would expand their range to the 20 to 23-foot mark, and they would play just like this. I mean, Hakeem now, he's probably better built for now than he was then, and then we're talking about one of the greatest centers to ever play. So I don't know. I just – the NBA is the best it's ever been right now. And hands down. So why can't we just be happy with how things are playing out? Mm-hmm. Marc Gasol shooting threes. Marc Gasol shooting step-back threes is amazing to me. I'd much rather see that than, dribble 7 times in the post, hook shot. Ugh.
Yes. Well, if I had my way, because we're both very big attack on the catch guys on the perimeter, well, we would have the pros players do that as well, which kind of harkens back to way back in the day in the 30s and 40s when they would ramble across the lane, catch the ball, and sort of half hook it in one shot and in one move. And that's what we also need to get back to in the post. And so we would eliminate those 7 dribble ISOs that would endanger you of getting called for the Mark Jackson rule, or you'd get like just better shots down low, and that would also change the complexion of the game. So hopefully we can get to doing some more of that, and we'll see more post players come in who have that ability, because that's when all of a sudden the game's exciting. I think the key here is the speed. I think when you use the speed of the game, in every facet, that's what it gets exciting.
There is a model for that right now. I mean, Marc Gasol has a nice little running hook that he uses in the lane, usually off a dribble or two, just to kind of seal the defender and then turn the corner on him. Kawhi, of course, has a really great little hook shot that is hard. It's barely a hook because his hands are so huge, but he's got great ball control on it, and it's a good shot for him. So, I mean, it does sort of exist in that fashion, but I can't. It's hard for me to believe that a guy that loves basketball as much as Hubie Brown wants to go back to 1985 post up. I can't believe that.
I think it's interesting. He is so old school, and I've seen him even like in recently or somewhat recently in certain clinics online, and it's I don't think I wonder when the last time he went to a clinic himself and heard like some of the latest stuff, because you got the feeling that a lot of those coaches don't. And, and I get it. You feel like the game. You've been coaching it a certain way for a long time, but there's no question we've learned a lot about the fundamentals since then, and realizing that, things have changed. Before I forget, I want to be remiss if I don't mention that we are taking your questions. So if you use hashtag BBallShow on Twitter, we will give you a big shout out and a big lots of love and all sorts of stuff. And it'd be fun to see your name out there if you do that right now. We had a couple questions so far, but get some more in there, and we'll go through a nice list of those in a couple minutes. Yeah,
actually, funny. Someone already asked about the Bertans Dedmon combo, which to me, that was like the highlight of the game to me, was those two guys playing together. It's a nice inside-out combination. And the fact – Dedmon is so athletic. I don't think people realize, because he just doesn't get enough run with those first units. But I think that's going to change. If I had to guess, that's going to change. it was fun. And those two have real chemistry together. Oh, look at this. Everyone wants to talk about Dedmon. This is great. This is my dream.
Let's go to all right, well, let's make sure we give the guys their proper due. Right. So Anto2K slash PTR or Anto2K Spurs. What do you think of the Bertans-Dedmon combo, which is the question that we're throwing out there? And then Curtis Brown is sort of on top of that. Thoughts on Dwayne Dedmon? Should he be a starter? So we kind of touched upon those two things. Now, certainly, so Bertans, we were talking about, could kind of get compared to, like, I guess, Matt Bonner. Not Anthony Bonner, Matt Bonner, but simply because they're white and they have red hair. But there's no question. And what I see in Bertans is he's athletic. He can move and he can dribble the ball. Two things that Bonner never did that well.
Well, he also has a much better shot. His shot is a much quicker release. It's over his head. Bonner was 6'10", but the way he shot was actually an easier contest for a four that would be guarding him because he kind of shoots from his shoulder. This is obviously he didn't. I guess, well, how old is Bonner? Is he 35, 36?
Yeah, something like that.
Back before they kind of streamlined shooting technique. And so he's kind of next to his head. So it's a much easier contest, and it was slow. His release was slow. He had to spread his legs out really wide. Bertans, does the hop. His feet look good. Really quick, nice release. And so, to me, he's much more of a threat. And then we got to see him put the ball on the floor a little bit tonight, especially on on that one lob to Dedmon. So I think he's got a little bit more versatility.
Absolutely, so this is exciting. And again, another one of these players that the Spurs can find somehow. That other teams probably had a shot at, but that's what happened. So let's see if we can. And Dwayne Dedmon, as far as I'm concerned, he should just take as many of Powell's minutes as possible. And I suppose. As far as Powell goes, I guess he has to start because of the political thing of it. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Dwayne Dedmon eating into those minutes every game that goes by.
I like Powell as sort of like the second unit center because he can still score. He just is terrible at defense, and I think you can use his scoring. Now he's getting paid to be a starting center. And so I don't think the Spurs really care about that, but they did pay him a lot of money, and he's got an option for next year that he can opt into that, at 16 or whatever million he's making a year, he's probably going to. But I just think Dedmon, God, what a find. He was not playing at all in Orlando, and the Spurs just keep finding these guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at our next question, which is from Eric G. asks, the offense looks so much more fluid without Aldridge. If the Spurs traded him, who could they use? Well, there's a guy who's thinking on your lines. Who could they get? What would make them, even that much better? Because again, they're probably the worst 19-5 or the most disrespected 19-5 team around so far, where they're not really in the consideration, I felt like, for title talk, even though they should be. So what would they need then that would make them any better than they are now if they traded Aldridge?
So they're 20-5 now.
Oh, 25, excuse me. Yes.
So they could use another guy that can play defense. I was throwing this out when the original the Jackie McMullen Aldridge rumors were sparked a few months ago, or I guess 6 weeks ago, or whenever it was. I threw out Millsap as a guy that I could see the Spurs possibly going after. Same age as Aldridge, though Millsap's on an expiring deal this year. But he feels like a Spursy player. Of course, he's in Atlanta, and so they use him like that. But I think a guy like Millsap, who's a good defender, can step out and shoot threes, is just versatile players. Like, we know Pop likes a guy to be a Swiss Army knife. And I think that Aldridge is a little bit too much of a one-trick pony. Is that too harsh? I think Aldridge is a good player. But I definitely think that they could use a guy like a Millsap, a good Millsap, I should say.
That's a good point. Again, I guess, does a ball stopping, ISO post player who shoots long twos really fit into what they do? Like, they've made it work. I guess you can argue without, there's a lot of results there for success. However, you're right. Aesthetically, when you're watching it, And when he's not in there, like tonight, it seems like they're more dangerous, they're better, something like that. So it's weird, but like, again, we go back to that whole notion. They just won't. They never have traded in the middle of the year, really. And so I think that they're just going to try and, ride or die. And the question now is they have so many options. I think it's almost going to be too difficult to try and keep everybody happy, I imagine. Perhaps they're going to get enough mileage with Bertans and Dedmon, who are like so new and they're just so happy to be there. I imagine they're not going to get all upset about not getting a lot of playing time yet. But who knows? That could easily become a problem too. And then you got a problem in the playoffs.
Well, the Spurs typically target guys that are not just good basketball players or guys that they think they can develop, but they also, they're looking for guys that are going to fit into the culture there. And if it says anything about Dwayne Dedmon, when the Magic the Magic rescinded their offer sheet as a favor to him because they like him. They obviously were going after Biyombo, and there were no minutes for him, but he was still an asset to them. But instead of just sticking him on the bench, they rescinded the offer, and that allowed him to sign with San Antonio. So he's not a jerk, because teams just wouldn't do that if that were the case.
Mm-hmm.
So that says a lot.
Absolutely. Well, should we go through some video? I have like 3 clips we can go through that are interesting that I grabbed while we were doing that. So as always, another fun part of our show, which is, let's see here. Let me get the audio off here. Okay, so we have in the third quarter, we're going to go to a nice high-low action from Gasol to Lee. Let's see. This is going to be a little stuttered, but you'll get the idea of how it looks. So basically what we have here is Parker pushes the ball to the wing, which is, another one of those nice revelations in the offense in the last, 10 years, where you could actually dribble the ball to the wing instead of passing it. And that sort of is new in a way. Like, they didn't really do it back in the day, and now they can get a little bit faster of an offense when you're pushing the ball. Okay, so now you're going to see like a horns-ish set, right? Would you call this horns?
Yeah, that's horns.
It is horns. Forgive me. Okay, so they initiate with the ball screen to Pau Gasol. So what are you seeing here so far, Dave?
Well, I really like – you see David Lee is trying to keep is that Olynyk? Yeah, he's keeping Olynyk honest, cutting behind him. I'm assuming that they're trying to run this – I don't know exactly which play this is, as like a pick and pop for Gasol. And Lee with the cut toward the hoop makes Olynyk help down. Oh, look at that. How about that? And now Lee's open for the layup when Olynyk comes to close out.
Yeah. So it's a really nice design play. It doesn't have to even be a call. Parker can simply opt to – well, this actually might be the call, because Pau doesn't even look to catch the ball first, because you might give the point guard a choice. Like, you can either enter it as a pass or use his ball screen. Pau runs right – oh, you know what? And they're right in front of the Spurs bench, so it's probably –
yeah, they're calling it.
He's calling it. So Pau comes up high. Yeah, so it's a high-low action here. Really simple. Screener will pop out. The weak side high post will dive down. And, you're forcing Olynyk here. He's in a two-on-one situation here. I guess the issue here is with Crowder. Crowder on the weak side should have bumped down on this. That would open up a three-pointer for Kawhi, but that's probably better than giving up a dunk to David.
Absolutely.
Now, we can also see this from another angle. I believe I grabbed it here. Oh, yeah. So here it is, just so you can see another angle of this.
So it's sort of a dive play out of horns.
Yeah.
With Gasol as the yeah. What a great pass. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I realized it. He threw it right by the noggin.
Yeah.
Through the wickets. This is also what you see a lot of with the Grizzlies, where they'll have Marc Gasol up here and Zebo diving down. They get that a lot.
Yeah, Orlando runs this a lot, or at least they did last season. Mm-hmm. And then it's funny because the Clippers run so much out of horns, but I never see them run that play. I run that play.
Yeah, it's very simple.
If any of my players are watching right now, like, they recognize that play. So
do you have a name for it?
I just call it dive.
Dive. All right, nice.
Yeah, horns dive.
Okay. Well, we go to the next clip we have, which is a little bit later in the third quarter, and this is what I just wanted to show you. So the video we did today that was piggybacking on what Matt Moore wrote on CBSSports.com was that one of the reasons why Kawhi Leonard isn't doing well on defense, or his numbers are bad, is that the offense is marginalizing him by bringing whoever he's guarding into the corner. And here it is. You can see in the right corner here. I need to get a telestrator. We'll have to figure out the technology at some point. You can see him in the right corner, and they literally do this a lot, where whoever he's guarding just stands in the corner and doesn't move. Now, this is also horns. Or no, this is not horns. This is a high pick. Oh, this is a little Iverson cut into a pick and roll. So this is a nice little clever set that that Brad Stevens likes to put in. So he wraps Avery around the cutter, and then that kind of gets the Olympics defender out of position on the pick and roll. But again, the point is that Crowder's just standing, holding his shorts. And as this plays out, we'll let it play out all the way. And they get a tough shot, and a good contest. But this is the point being that Kawhi was not any part of this play.
Yeah, I think this is when in the G chat that you and I had running during this game, I was telling you, Pop really needs to switch in these moments. He needs to switch Kawhi onto the most creative player on the court, which to me would have been Avery Bradley in this scenario, because it's hard to just take him and stick him in the corner. I mean, he's a great corner three shooter. I mean, he's a shooter, and but that's a guy you want to marginalize, whereas Jay Crowder isn't really ever creating anything off the dribble, so the individual defense is just not as important.
So you want to kind of point the finger at Pop for even having him guard Crowder in the first place.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Once you know that they're doing this, I know that Pop likes to use Kawhi as like a super duper help defender because he's fantastic at it. But when they're going to marginalize him like this, you really should look to get him involved in the defense. I mean, actually later on, I don't know if you have the clip of this, but later on they started putting Manu on Crowder and had Kawhi on Bradley. So I think Pop also realized that. I mean, look, it's Greg Popovich. He probably knew coming into this game he was going to do this. So, I'm not teaching him anything. But
by the way, this is David Lee doing a really nice job to contest and force a miss. I know it's not like Chris Paul, but it's Marcus Smart. But certainly, this is the kind of defense that they can get out of him somewhat regularly. Then they're gonna. This is what's going to get them to the promised land or close.
Yeah, David Lee, and maybe it's just because again, Pop's scheme is used to dealing with players that are not as athletic as the guys they're trying to guard. Mm-hmm. But David Lee looks more athletic this year.
Yeah,
maybe he's just having fun.
Maybe. Now, here's the other point I wanted to make about this is that, Crowder is now standing there for, let's just see when he starts. So he gets there with about 22 seconds on the clock, let's just say, and he stands around and he's walking for 7-8 seconds. Now, what happens, though, is it kind of takes you out of the play. So when we let this play, watch, Kawhi's just going to sprint down and he gets a dunk because of it. And, now part of it is because Bradley kind of gets stuck. Actually, nice little screen by Danny Green over here, if you can see that, holding him back. But the bottom line is that should have been Crowder's man. He wasn't going for the rebound. It should have been an easy way to get back. But he's just sort of disconnected because he was standing there watching. And that's one of the other perils is you're bringing usually one of your good scorers out of the play for several possessions in a row, and B, getting back on defense, could be an issue as it is here.
And that's weird for the Celtics because they don't crash the boards at all. They on offense, they get back on every shot. So I'm actually kind of surprised that they gave that up.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of issues here on that with doing that, but it's it didn't work tonight. Okay, later in the third, 4-9 in the third left, Bradley standing on the weak side. So here's what we were talking about. Now here's Manu on Crowder, but then here's what's his face, Kawhi on Bradley, just like you talked about. And again, they put him in the corners. This can't be by accident, right? This has to be by design.
Absolutely. Teams have figured out a way to marginalize Kawhi, but the drawback to that, and the Bulls saw this, the drawback is he's going to guard your best offensive player 9 times out of 10, and you're going to have to figure out a way to create offense without that guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Now, if you're playing if you have, if you have Tony Parker and you have Pau Gasol, and maybe Aldridge is sort of in that realm as far as defenders, then I get it. Like, okay, let's make it a 4-on-4 game with those guys instead. And then interestingly here, like, what happens, he does lift to the left wing here, and look at that, he's Kawhi's all over him, like denying that pass. I almost feel like Kawhi's got to invite the pass, let him throw it to him so he can actually be on the ball instead of denying that pass. What do you think?
Well, all right, so that is a guy, you're speaking as a guy who wants to be involved in the defense, but I think Kawhi's idea is I need to play the best defense I can. And with Mills and Dedmon out there, I think Mills is an above average defender. And Dedmon, to me, is the best defensive big they have on the team. I think that denying the best offensive creator out on the court, I think it's smart. Take him out of the play completely.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just thinking out ways. What could he do that to kind of get back in, and then what to see happen. And by the way, another good defensive possession by Mr. David Lee.
Absolutely, his footwork has looked fantastic this year. Yes,
and so and this is the kind of thing that we just simply weren't seeing before, and that looks really good. So I'm encouraged by what's going on. Oh, there we go. I'm encouraged by what's going on with the Spurs, and I think it's probably just a matter of time here until they kind of get everybody sort of marinated together, and will be very tough. Now, as far as I remember, they already destroyed the Warriors once when they played them. Is that memory correct?
Yes, they won by 30 or something close to that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. There was some underlying or context to that. I'm kind of forgetting now what it was. Wasn't there something about the Warriors? And no. Anyway,
it was first game. You throw the first game out according to everyone, but it still counts as much as the last game. But of course, the Warriors were not firing on all cylinders. Kevin Durant hadn't become the weak side help defender that he is, after the last 20-something games. So I don't know. It's I think we know that the Warriors are better than the Spurs, but I also trust Pop to figure it out.
Yeah, he owes that we are owed a Spurs Warriors series. I think, right? That is something that we need to have.
I hope, but I don't know if we're going to get it. We thought we might get a Warriors Clippers series, but the Clippers don't look. I mean, that doesn't look like it'd be much of a series. I don't know. I hope we get it because we need to end it once and for all. So people can quit saying, well, the Warriors didn't have to play the Spurs the last couple years or whatever. But, unless Tim Duncan's coming back, I just don't think that the Spurs can hang with the Warriors. And that's such a weird thing to say about a 40-year-old center with 2 bad knees. But what he did on the court, and we've been talking about this since the summer. I told you their defense is going to take a huge step back. Of course, that's obvious because you're replacing Duncan with Gasol. But the reasoning is that Duncan just quarterbacked the defense. He told everyone where to be, and he was such a smart – he got positional blocks. He was such a smart rim protector and help defender. You couldn't do what they're doing with Kawhi with Duncan on the court because any penetration would be turned back.
Right. And the other thing is that offensively as well, there was something about what Duncan could do as a quarterback there that I think people have been lamenting this year that is sort of lacking. But then certainly tonight we saw a really good example of what they can do when they get the beautiful game going. And again, there's no question that with Aldridge in there, the ball simply does not move like that. And they could be schizophrenic like they were last year where they would put the starters in. There was a lot of ISO, and then the bench would come in, and then the ball would be going crazy. And that's okay. I don't think that that's going to ultimately be any kind of downfall for them. It's just a lot more pleasing when you watch it the way they did it tonight. We have a few more questions, Dave. What do you say? Should we get to those?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Are you ever going to just say, no, let's not go to the question?
Yeah. Well, these are okay questions. If they were bad, I would say, let's skip.
All right. Well, let's see what we got here. So everybody can read these. Let's see here. Celtic Bird asks, Bradley looked pretty good out there tonight. If he keeps this up, is there any potential for him making the East All-Star team? Well, I would think so. I'm trying to think of who the guys are who are always in front of him. Who are the guard? Like DeMar DeRozan is a starter, right? So that's not going to be a thing. Dwayne Wade, I guess so. I kind of want to take a real quick look at Avery Bradley's per game stuff, right, real quick. So real quickly, he's averaging 18 points a game, 2.5 assists, 1.1 steals. He's shooting just about 43% from three, but I just don't know if that's gaudy enough to make the All-Star team. Do you?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there's too many guards ahead of him. John Wall.
Lowry.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler, if he's a guard, I don't know. Also, a lot of this is you have to think, okay, so 5 spots are gone immediately because of the starters being voted in, and Avery Bradley's just not going to get voted in. So there's 2 guard spots gone already. I just don't know if he's been one of the 5 or 6 best guards. He's been good, and he's been really good. But yeah, I don't think he can make it.
Well, how about this? If it's any consolation to you, Celtic Bird, he's on my favorite players list now, and that must count for something. I should probably make my own little video on those, just so somebody gets the non-All-Stars who are my favorite players. Well, let's go on to Donaway Joseph. Asks, do the Spurs need to play smart offense in the early game? I don't know what that means exactly, but I think. What do you think that means, Dave?
I don't know, but I would say yes.
Smart offense is good at any time of the game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Always want to play smart offense.
Yes. Ken Sung asks, if you are the coach of the Spurs, would you let Tony Parker continue to start over Patty Mills? Again, this is one of those political things to some degree. I could see why they would say Patty Mills is better because he's going against the second unit. It's a fastball coming in off of a change up, that kind of thing. I don't know. What do you think, Dave?
All right. So if all things are equal, then yeah, I'm starting Patty Mills. He's a better defender. He's a better shooter, and he's more athletic. But the issue is with the Spurs, you've got this unique scenario where you have Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, who are now basically the same guy. Of course, Manu shoots more threes and is a better defender, but they kind of do similar things when they're in the game. And so you can't really just bring Tony Parker off the bench and play him next to Manu because that is a defensive disaster. More so, probably worse than Tony Parker and Pau Gasol on the court at the same time.
Yeah.
Because at least Pau's 7 feet tall. So for strategic purposes, I understand not starting Patty Mills. But if you look at the minute distribution, Patty Mills is in there at crunch time. Patty Mills and Dedmon, well, of course, with Aldridge out, Dedmon was in there. I expect going forward, we'll see more of that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Is that, once you change that up, and while the starters might be better, it messes everything else up after that defensively. I agree for a lot of reasons. And then the bottom line is it's like Tony just deserves to start, and while he's still running around out there, he should be the starter. And, I think he's earned that much to some degree. So good question. Luke Magri asks, I can see Powell being moved to the bench in Chicago. Hoiberg was a new coach with little leverage. Different story with Pop in San Antonio. I guess it's also half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. He plays the first few minutes, and then he comes out. It's really the crunch time minutes we have to deal with here, I think, right? As far as when he's going to play. So I would just think that if you're going to see anything different with Powell, it's going to be less minutes in the fourth quarter. Yeah,
absolutely. And no one uses the regular season as a laboratory the way that Greg Popovich does. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see him play around with a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, and then Luke also has another good point here. Powell would feast on bench defenses. Yeah, for sure he would be able to score down there. And then Dedmon would be that starter. I think Dedmon playing the starting lineup makes a little bit more sense to me because they could use one more really good defender. And from what I've seen so far, am I missing anything, or is he legit as a defender?
He's good. I have this dream of Patty Mills, Danny Green, Jonathan Simmons, Kawhi, and Dedmon.
Ooh, lineup of death.
Yeah, that is now. If they pull this out in the playoffs, if they play the Warriors and they pull this out, I'm taking credit for it. I'm just going to assume Pop is sitting in the locker room right now watching this show, and he said, "Oh my God, that's a genius move." That is the Spurs lineup of death.
Who is the way? Simmons is the fifth. All right. Mills,
Yes.
Green, Kawhi, Dedmon, and Simmons.
Yeah, it would be insane.
I'm tweeting that out right now. Just want to share that for everybody. That's a good one.
Right.
You know, and we're live tweeting here.
Yeah, we can have a pause in the action for if you're tweeting that out because you like it. I'm down with that.
Oh yeah, and then you know what? We got to include a link to this video here so they can anybody wants to hear more of that. All right. Okay. Well, let's get back. We have a couple more questions left, and then we can wrap the show up. So let's see here. Borisov asks, Coach, which teams do you think are sleepers for strong playoff push against the Golden State Warriors and Cavs, respectively? Dave, you want to grab this one first?
Yeah, I think a sleeper in the East. I think the Hornets are a sleeper. They've been having a good season. Kemba Walker is amazing right now. Like he is. That's an all-star. Who I totally forgot about. And it's easy to forget about him, which is why they're a sleeper. They do a lot of things really well. I think Roy Hibbard's got one more run in him. Like I think that he's gonna prove to be a really good piece for them in the playoffs when things kind of slow down and tighten up. And Steve Clifford he's a good coach. I think that what they're doing there is really impressive. And as far as in the West, a sleeper, I think the Rockets are kind of a sleeper, but people are starting to wake up on them. Like tonight they just destroyed the Kings, who are barely an NBA team with Cousins and Gay out. So, that's kind of tough to use as an example, but they are really good. They're defending really well too. And given their personnel, like that's all coaching. And I've been saying this in Summer League, like Mike D'Antoni has never had plus defenders at every position or even at 3 out of 5 positions in his starting lineup. And he always ekes out at least an average defense. And his offenses are always top 5. So this is a 50-win team. The Rockets are.
Yeah, I like Houston. I like what's going on there. I owe them a breakdown without question. But yeah, right now they're 4th in offensive rating, and they're only 21st in defense. So they're still going to have to shore that up quite a bit if they're going to make a run at the Warriors. You could throw out the Jazz if they're healthy and they get everybody back with enough time to kind of gel. I wouldn't put it past the Jazz to be there. Win their 50-some games and give them a run for their money.
Yeah, they've got a lot of the right pieces to give the Warriors a really tough series if they were to meet up. The issue is just health. This is why I was not as high on Utah coming into the season, because there's a certain point where guys are injury prone, and I hate to use that term, but it's just the truth. And they just kind of have that thing. I've got some concerns about Quinn Snyder's end of game coaching. But all things being equal, if they're all healthy, Rudy Gobert is possibly the best defensive center in the league. And his offensive game has improved quite a bit. He's hitting free throws. We know about Hayward. People are starting to find out about Hood. And George Hill, after 10 years of being good, people are finally starting to learn that he's good. So they have a lot of the right pieces to challenge Golden State.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see how they're going to get it done. I'm not even aware of end game issues with Snyder, but I'm going to have to keep my eye. I haven't watched enough Jazz yet, and I'm going to get onto them soon. Let's go on to our next question, which is, let's see here. Anto asks, what do you think of Kyle Anderson being put in the game for defensive purposes? Kyle Anderson is in that second most played lineup or third most played lineup that has a really good defensive rating, and I was a little bit surprised by that. But he's long and smart, so positionally he can handle that. I just think it's all part of the issue that Pop has, which is he's got a lot of players that can all contribute, and there's not a lot of drop off, and there's simply no way to balance it all and get everybody enough minutes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a smart player. I really thought this was going to be the year of Kyle Anderson. I thought he was going to, but this was before they signed Gasol. I thought he was going to be the starter at the 4 or at least get significant minutes, but it looks like most of his minutes are kind of coming on the wing. at that 3 position when Leonard is out. So I don't know. I don't know. Like Pop sometimes does this with guys where they're in the doghouse for a little while. Although usually it's backup point guards that he does it with. So I don't know what's going on with Kyle Anderson. I think he's a smart player, and I think Pop trusts him to a certain extent as far as the defense goes. My bigger concern with him is why isn't he playing more? Not why is he in for defense?
Yeah, and he started 7 games and he's played in 21, and but he's not even getting 14 minutes a game. And I think it's just a problem. I think they just they have too many people. They have too many guys, and the system works for everybody like that. That works really well. So we'll have to see if who stays healthy, who rests more, and they start to do more of that resting thing. Then he'll probably get some more minutes just off of that. And then there's Celtic. No problem. Our pleasure to answer your questions. Eric G says, not a question, but when Manu retires, then Patty can start. Okay, sounds good to me. Parker come off the bench then. Sure, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I heard tonight that Tony Parker wants to play till he's 40. Well, he's playing like he's 40 right now. So.
Right. He looked good tonight, though. I'm telling you, he's a little bit more spry than normal. But But again, that's his problem. He can't sustain that. I don't blame him. It's been a lot.
Yeah, he has flashes.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to our next question here, which is Humbled Assassin asks, do you think that Dedmon replacing Powell will significantly deter the 4-on-4 strategy? Well, I mean, I don't think so, right? Because, again, that's like an interior defender. And I guess the idea being that if they try to make it 4-on-4 and you have a guy who's that good of a rim protector, then it doesn't really help you then. So maybe I just kind of contradicted myself. What do you think, Dave? Do you think that actually would get rid of that?
Yeah, I think it would. Like I mentioned that when I was talking about Tim Duncan. I think having a good rim protector and, Dedmon can switch. So you can't just put him in a 4-on-4 pick and roll and then get a mismatch on the big. I think that could totally take away that Kawhi in the corner strategy. Again, I'm assuming Pop's already worked out a way to work around this, and he's just not using it yet.
Right, and that's another good point. He's probably not upset about letting Kawhi rest a little bit, and not kind of getting beat up around screens. That said, Jimmy Butler did, when they did go to him in that Bulls game, they did run him off some screens and some ball screens, and that worked. Like they were getting free throws, and it was helping them. So we'll have to find out how much of a copycat league this is, because it just still rubs me so wrong that you're going to take your best perimeter player offensively and just shove him in the corner just for that reason. It's just weird to me, and that would be such a bizarre change in the middle of your whole season. You don't have time to prepare much, and it's like a screeching halt. I don't know. It's hard for me to picture that happening. More often.
This is like Vivek Ranadive's dream come true. That is now, a lot of people made fun of him for the 4-on-4 cherry picking thing, but this is a version of that, right? This is a more acceptable version. I've done this before. I've had like my best offensive player just stand 35 feet from the hoop as sort of a safety valve. And if that guy, if the defender helps off of him, okay, so you're looking for the kick out for the deep three. Now, it's a little different, in high school, the corner isn't as effective as it is in the NBA because it's not as far. But I don't know. I'm not against it. I like it. I like that at least these coaches are thinking, hey, how can I minimize the impact of one of the best 2 defensive players in the league? Because I think Draymond is the best. Right, and he is always, guarding a bigger guy who's around the basket. It's an interesting thing that I think Matt brought up in his article was that that is the conundrum of having a great perimeter defender, which you think you need. You can do that, which is a lot harder to do with a post player or a big guy who just will naturally be around the rim more and be able to wreak more havoc or even deter altogether a drive. It's a real fascinating thing that I guess you're right. We'll have to wait, but I think you're also right that Popovich simply won't reveal how he's going to do it. That said, if he doesn't reveal it or they don't try it a little bit, then they're not going to be ready to run whatever the adjustment is in the playoffs. So you got to keep your eyes open. He might sneak it in there. You won't realize it happens. Then he's going to scurry his away again for another couple games, but we'll have to keep our eye on that. Yeah, well, he may have tonight. Again, he made the switch to Bradley when Crowder was on the court. So he may have he may have already kind of snuck it in there. Let me take out the main creator for this team, and if they dare them to stick that guy in the corner and then try to figure it out. That could be what he wants to do. I mean, Kawhi's usage is like 30%. He could use a break on defense.
Yeah, and maybe they could do something where he can switch after the initial. He kind of like lines up, and they can sort of, because the guy he's going to leave is, stuck in the corner on the weak side. If they wanted to switch and try and throw it to him, whoever else was there would have a chance to probably, rotate over and get back. It's a weird. It kind of reminds me of that time where every once in a while you'll see when they try and run a screen and roll with a bad defender, they'll try and switch that guy as the ball screener is like on the way up to setting the screen. And we should see a lot more of that. I wish we would. It's not easy at all, but it kind of reminds me of that, where they're going to try and jump that switch before to go them into getting that guy in the corner, and then all of a sudden you can get Kawhi involved. So we'll have to see how that works. But I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about tonight, Dave?
We didn't talk about the Celtics at all.
Oh, that's true. We did not. How did that happen? Well, let's talk about the Celtics for a minute. What do you think?
Well, the Spurs are more interesting. I mean, the Spurs are doing more interesting things. Like the Celtics right now are still trying to figure out what they are. I think that the Celtics are going to make a trade. You talked about R.C. Buford not being an in-season trade guy. Danny Ainge, I'm pretty sure. I saw that Danny Ainge, someone tweeted this out, and I forget who it was, and I apologize. The Danny Ainge trade decision tree. And it was fantastic. And it was like, is this player a superstar? Okay, yes, let's make the trade. I think that he's looking for a trade. I just don't know what trade is out there. Carmelo has a no trade clause. I don't know that Carmelo would waive it to go to Boston. I don't know what guy is out there that could help them. And would Boston give up a guy like Jaylen Brown and the Nets pick for Carmelo? No, I don't think so. So it's going to be weird for them. And Isaiah Thomas is their main shot creator, and the entire offense kind of depends on him to do stuff. And we saw tonight how they struggled a little bit to get, the offense moving and get things going without that player on the court.
Yeah, I mean, when Horford is playing with them and he's at full strength like he was tonight, they are a different team. They look much better. And then guys like Olynyk can come off the bench, and I like Amir Johnson. So there is something there, and I never want to be the guy who's going to say there's no way to win or get to the finals without a superstar. I don't want to believe it's completely true. So, I don't know. You're right. Like the trade, there's nothing that comes out of my mind that would actually work. Melo, I don't see that working in a lot of ways. It wouldn't be worth. Well, we saw what happened when the Knicks traded for Melo and gave away so many good, young, talented players that were doing nicely for D'Antoni. It would be the same thing, a similar thing if they tried that in Boston. It's not the guy. And the guy that they want is not available. Durant is not available. Love is not available. Those are the guys they probably would fit in the best.
Yeah. I mean, I think Jaylen Brown, I think they'll develop him into that guy. Like, I really like his game a lot. He's got a nice, smooth jump shot. He already draws fouls like a 5-year veteran. He's really good at getting to the line. And so, and he's 6'8", 6'9", can guard 1 through 4. And I mean, that's your guy. The problem is he's, 19.
Right, and he can jump out the gym, and he's got a nice turnaround fadeaway in the post. Wait, where did he go to college again? Out here?
No, he went to Cal.
Cal, okay, yeah. So he's just got I'm surprised because I hadn't seen much of him, and I wasn't expecting him to do much at all. And he doesn't look like an intimidated rookie at all. He looks like a guy ready to go and take on more of a role.
He was like that from day one at Summer League. I mean, it was apparent, and they did a good job of putting him. He had the ball in his hand a lot. He was initiating the early offense. And he was doing all the things that you want that star wing to do for your team. You could see that they started grooming him right away to be that guy. Now, whether he is that, I mean, he's not going to be that guy this year. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't see him winning you a playoff game as a rookie. Just because rookies don't do that. So, it's tricky because they're a team that they're sort of built to compete now, but they're missing a guy or two, and that's tough. I mean, I'm excited. Again, we're at the point where like trade season is open, December 15th. So we're about to start seeing some moves, and we may just see some small moves. Expect to hear Evan Turner's name quite a bit.
Oh, that's interesting. He finally looked okay the other game I watched with them. But, yeah, when you looked at the lineup data with Evan Turner in the Portland lineups, it's a disaster. I mean, he is the worst of any of the regular players in their lineup when he's in there. And that, to me, even though we see those weird things with Kawhi and the Spurs, and it doesn't ring true, watching Evan Turner on the Blazers for the most part looks, like, oh, I can understand why that disparity is so bad and the net rating is not good. So yeah, no, it's going to be Christmas early, I guess. But I suspect it's going to be a lot of small deals, little things here and there. I would be surprised if somebody even traded for like a major rotational player. Or much less a starter. I can't even imagine that happening. But yeah, I think it's the problem with the Celtics is they almost have too many options here. They have too many assets, and it's just like it's really kind of a complicated mess. And as a result, like nobody kind of wants to deal with. That's the other question is, does anybody even want to deal with them? Because they know that if they do, they're probably going to help them immensely because they are sort of on that precipice of getting to the elite level.
Yeah, their biggest concern, like the Ezeli signing was a good signing, aside from the injury stuff. Evan Turner was a weird one, and he doesn't fit, like we just talked about. The stats and the eye test kind of match on that. But you're right. I think that you're getting a lot. GMs are really smart right now. Daryl Morey has been kind of ahead of the game, and everyone knows that nobody wants to do a trade with Daryl Morey because they assume they're getting a raw end of the deal. The Harden trade, a great example of how he really got, he got a $5 bill for a bunch of dimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that with the smarter front offices, you get less and less and less and less of these sort of bigger marquee names moving around. So I don't know. John Wall is another guy I would say to watch out for being on the move because he's obviously not happy. They're not playing well. There's like 8 million reasons why John Wall could get moved. But the Wizards don't talk, so don't expect to hear anything about it ahead of time. Like they're very good at keeping their mouth shut. It's kind of great.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to keep our eye on that. And I think we kind of come to the end of our live post-game show, which is another good one. We had a good game and a lot of people in here with some good questions. So, Dave, I guess what we have on tap, we're going to have another podcast, which we did very well last Saturday, one of our most listened to podcasts of all time. And I think we're going to do that again. I don't know. Maybe we'll do Saturday. We'll do Friday. We'll figure that out. What do you think? Yeah,
no, definitely. I think we need to do these weekly. We have too much to talk about. I mean, we already talk every day. We might as well let people listen in a little bit because, I'll listen to our conversations. Like I listened to our podcast from the other day, and I was like, wow, I totally missed something that you had said when we were talking. Because, in these podcasts, a lot of times, like you're thinking about the next thing to say. And I try not to do that, but I caught myself doing it because, you're a tough guy sometimes to keep up with, right? I want to make sure I'm jumping out ahead. I don't want you taking all my shine. And so I was like, wow, I totally missed that. It blew my mind. And so, we gotta do as much of this as possible. I've gotten a lot of good feedback. My friends who love the NBA, they love this. So, this is fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm competitive. I want to get, more listens, and I want to get to beyond other people's podcasts just because I want to. So, we had a great time without question. We'll do it again. And we did it as a mailbag, by the way, on the NBA Reddit page, which is another great thing. We got so many awesome questions. So we're going to throw it out there again, Thursday-ish or so, and give you guys enough time to get to those questions, and then we'll post everything up and everywhere so you'll get a chance to hear it. And so don't forget, we have B-Ball Breakdown podcast is over on iTunes and Stitcher, anywhere you want to find it. And obviously our YouTube videos. If you didn't see the San Antonio Spurs breakdown I did on the Kawhi Leonard conundrum, definitely check it out from earlier today. Anything else, Dave? Podcast coming up you want to shout out?
Actually, I did a really great That Guy basketball podcast today with my friend Connor Williamson, who we talked about player development. The NBA's launching the NBA academies over in Australia and China, and we kind of compared it a little bit to the European soccer system and how that could affect the American game. And it was a fun podcast. And he's a guy that I talk to a lot, and he just graduated from college. So it's really impressive to me that he is so focused on player development, which most guys aren't thinking about until, later. I think he's a super smart guy, and everybody should give that a listen because it was a good podcast.
Oh wow, I'll have to cue that up in the shower. So next time when I hear it, so we'll hear how that goes. Sounds exciting. It's a great podcast, everyone. So go check him out over at That Guy Basketball Podcast. Is it That Guy Basketball Podcast? Right?
That Guy Basketball Podcast. Yeah.
Yes. So, but it's that guy.
That guy. Yeah. I'm that guy.
Yeah, because you don't want to be that guy basketball.
Right. No. It's That Guy Basketball Podcast.
Exactly.
So put a comma in there, just really confuse everybody.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave, for being here with me for another one of these. We'll do it again next week. Podcast coming up. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
100%.